Okay. We have a privilege to be Zeicha to learn Eretz Yisrael, the Holy Land. We're on Bracha Staff Nun, Amud Aleph, approximately halfway in the white lines, slightly above halfway in the white lines. The line starts with Ravina. So, we got it. Ravina v'Rav Barbuzi. So it says gemorah, Ravina Rav Barbuzi, Ikloile Bei Reish Galus. So they went to the house of the prime minister, the president, Kamer of Chama v'Komada Abe Meya. So obviously there was a lot of people over there. Rav Chama gets up, he starts trying to get 100 people. As we saw before in the previous Mishnah, when there's 100 people, you add a different nusach according to the first opinion of Yesi Aglili. What do you say when there's 100? You say, Nevarach Hashem Elokeinu. You say, also Hashem Elokeinu. Right? So he was looking for 100. Okay? Even though we passed on Rabbi Kiva that says there's no difference. Whether there's 100, 10, you always say the same thing, Elokeinu. He said to him, you don't need 100. Amarava, Allah Kiva. You don't need 100. We pass on like Rabbi Kiva. The way there's 10, 100, 10,000, you always say the same thing, Nevarach Elokeinu. You don't say Hashem Elokeinu if there's 100. So Amarava, okay, that's Allah. Amarava. Ki achlinan rifta bei reish galusa. Says Rava, when I was eating bread in the house of the reish galusa, there's an interesting story over here. What's happening? So there used to be a lot of people ate in the house of the Nasi, reish galusa. So mevarchinan, we used to bench gimel. We used to get up into small groups of three guys here, 3 guys there, and we benched. In other words, they wanted to finish early, they wanted to finish up, l'chaira, or whatever, we're going to see in a second why they did it. Even though there's many people, they had 10, they could have said Elokeinu. They didn't wait for Elokeinu, they said, they benched, 3, gimel. The gemorah said, yud. Okay, you don't want to have to wait till all 1,000 people finish, but wait till it's 10. Wait till it's 10, yud. When it's yud, you could do Elokeinu. You have to wait till the gemorah. The implication is, if you can do Elokeinu, you got to do Elokeinu. You got to wait for 10. You can't break off 3. So gemorah answers, Shama reish galusa vikbid. We don't want to do 10 because when you do 10, the guy's got to say it louder so all 10 people can hear. And if you're saying it louder, so what's going to happen? The president's going to hear. These guys are benching. They're leaving early. He's going to get upset. Vikbid. He's going to get upset. So the gemorah asks, so why are you breaking off early? So if you're going to insult the president, right? So why are you finishing early? Wait for the president to finish. Wait for the reish galusa. Bench with him. So there's so many people there. The whole world's there, right? We're not going to hear. So what he's saying is there's too many people there. There's 1,000 people. You're not going to hear him benching. This is before there's microphones. And it's actually machlekes, a place if you could be it with a microphone, if you're allowed to use a microphone for benching. Moshe and other places can make machlekes. But l'chayra, you can't use a microphone. So, and they didn't have microphones in those days. So what are you going to do? If we wait for the reish galusa, we're not going to hear him. We can't make our own minyan of 10 because he's going to be insulted. Why are you making your own minyan? So we did 3. Chiddush. So the place can ask, how could you break off? How are you allowed to not do 10? If you've got 10, do 10. How'd you get away with not doing 10? That's the kasha over here. How are you allowed to do this? If you have to wash for 10, if you have to do a zimun of 10, how are they allowed to? Because they don't want to insult the reish galusa. It's the Rashba's kasha. He asked a kasha. How are they allowed to go ahead and do this? And the kasha applies to all of us. When you ever go to a wedding and you're not interested in waiting till the end, till the sheva brachas, you got to leave. It's 11 o'clock. You got work tomorrow. What do? You got to stay there till the end? You don't want, right? So the Rashba says how are they allowed to do it. Before we get to the Rashba's terms, the Taz says that they're allowed to do it since the chiyuv to do a zimun with 10, that is only if they finish the meal together. The chiyuv zimun is chal when you finish the meal. If everyone finishes together, you got to bench together. But since they finished before everyone else, they finished half an hour earlier, so they don't have to wait for the 10. That's how the Taz understands it. The Rashba goes ahead and says, listen, I'll tell you why you can't do it. They don't have to do 10, they don't have to break off a minion and insult the Reish Galusa, right? That they don't have to do. They're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to, cover the Brias, cover the Reish Galusa. You're not allowed to go ahead and make a minion, right? Go against the rules, blatantly. He's going to see. You're not allowed to do that. So what can you do? 3 you could do, no problem, right? So what are you going to tell me? So they should wait for the Reish Galusa. But they can't hear the Reish Galusa. There's too many people. So therefore the question doesn't start, according to Rashi. Rashi says, look, normally, if there's a minion, you can't break off. You got to do it with the minion. You got to do it with 10, right? But hey, since there's no other option, they can't hear it, and they're not allowed to do 10 because that's going to be insulting. You're not allowed to insult someone. And it's only, he says, since it's only Yichiv Darabonon, the whole Zimun, Basara, it's Machaikis if it means Basara, Zimun, since the whole thing's only Darabonon, it's rabbinical, it's not biblical, therefore they're not Mechuyvta, you're not allowed to go ahead and insult someone, cover the Brias. Governed Kol Abrias, Shadeicha, Leisa, say Darabonon, that's one sheet in the Rashba, that they're allowed to violate the Sissa Darabonon, not to go ahead and be Mizalz and Reish Galusa, you make a Machaikis, you insult them. Okay, so those are the few mahalchim over here, how they were allowed to break off. So back to gemorah. Says gemorah, Omer Rabba Toisfa. That was an interesting name. Rabba Toisfa, that was his name. Hani Gimel, 3 guys. The Karchi Rifter Bahadi Adari, 3 guys that eat bread together, right? The Kedel Chad Minai Baruch Al, one of them gets up, says grace, benches, he's done. Right? He benches. So you're left with 2, right? Inu nafkim bezimun today. So he's benched. So again, you're seeing there 3 guys. One of the benches. Happens to you. You have a Shabbos meal, have a meal, and one guy doesn't realize there's a zimun, he benched. But you still got 2 guys there. Right? So inu nafkim bezimun today. The 2 guys could do a zimun. They can still do a zimun. He's still sitting there. He can bench, he can answer the zimun. But the 3rd guy that already benched, he's not yet with that zimun. He already benched. And we said before that you can't do a zimun after you bench, right? You can't do a zimun after you bench. He already benched, he's not yet to zimun. But they can be yet to zimun even though he benched. Massive chiddush. The Rishonim asks, how could they be yet to zimun if he's already benched? What's going on over here? So what they say is that just like if you have a guy as a vegetable, he can be mitzvah to the zimun, right? The guy doesn't have to watch to have the zimun. If 2 guys had bread and one guy has a cucumber, you could do a zimun, the Gemara said. Yeah, because mitzvah. Even though he's not chayiv in Berachas Hamazon. So you see, you don't have to have an obligation to bench in order to mechayiv zimun. So this guy, he's mechayiv zimun, even though he doesn't have to bench. He benched already. But since he ate, he's chayiv zimun, even though there's no chayiv benching on him. But he can't be yetz zimun now because he's already benched. He blew it. That's how they understand it. It's a bit of a complicated musag. They could be yetz with him, he can't be yetz with them.
Paskin like that, so
I think so, yeah.
you just eat a vegetable.
I think so. There's no letter over here. Yeah, you could definitely eat a vegetable. You could be mitzvah someone with vegetable who to bench. Okay. You can't retroactively do a zimun after you've benched. Too late to zimun. Zimun is before you benched. Says the gemorah. Rabbi Shmuel Omer. We're back to the Mishnah. Said Rabbi Shmuel says.
Okay. If you can do zimun and you didn't wash hamotzi, why should after benching make a difference?
Because the zimun, so the zimun is, according to some shitas, because the zimun is to be mizarez everyone, to motivate everyone to bench with kavana. Let's bench with kavana. Let's do a good benching. That's what zimun is. So you've already benched. You blew it. Now you can do a zimun. You've already benched. That's the whole point of zimun. Let's go ahead and bench with kavana. That's what one mahalach was. That was the most easiest mahalach. Let's leave it at that. Says Rabbi Shmuel, Raf Maimer. Sorry. Rabbi Shmuel, back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, according to Rabbi Kiva, when you get to Daven Ma'ariv, you get to come to the Torah, you say, Baruch es Hashem. Blessed is Hashem. According to Rabbi Shmuel, you say, Baruch es Hashem, Hamvayrach. Blessed is Hashem, who is blessed. Why are you saying blessed is Hashem who is blessed? Well, like, what does that mean? Never understood what that means until you get to this gemorah. So he says, the gemorah explains, Rashi explains, when you say bless Hashem, I'm telling you, you bless God. When I say he's blessed, I'm including myself in the fact that I'm blessing him. I'm also blessing him. I'm a varach. I agree he's blessed. If I just say you bless God, you do it. I'm not doing it. When I say Baruch Hashem, you bless God, I'm a varach. Now I'm including myself in the fact that he's blessed. I also say he's blessed. Baruch Hashem, I'm a varach. I'm saying he's blessed. So Rabbi Kiva said you don't have to say I'm a varach. Just say Baruch Hashem. Rabbi Shmuel says you should say Baruch Hashem, I'm a varach, that he's blessed. Okay. Says Gemara, Rafram Bar Papa, everyone knows his name, Rafram Bar Papa from all the Siyumim, the famous Rafram Bar Papa. Here we go. Ikle lebei knishu da Abi Gibber. He went to shul of Abi Gibber. Question is, who's this Abi Gibber fellow? There was a shul called Abi Gibber, the strong father. I guess that's what it means. Strong father. That was the name of the shul. Maybe we should change the name of our shul to Abi Gibber. It's a nice name, no? So he went to the shul. That was the name, Avi Gibber. So what happened? Come, Kara Basifra. He went up and he read the Torah. Va'amar. What did the Rafram say? He said Baruch Hashem. V'ishtik. He did like Reb Kiva. He didn't say Baruch Hashem Ham V'irach. He said Baruch Hashem. And the klal is we passing like who? We passing like Reb Kiva neged Chaverov. If it's machlekes Reb Kiva and anyone, we passing like Reb Kiva. So he passed like Reb Kiva. He said Baruch Hashem. He didn't say I'm a vayrach. So Avshu, this happened to the shul today. They all started screaming at him. Avshu kula Baruch Hashem I'm a vayrach. They all scream. Baruch Hashem I'm a vayrach. Why aren't you saying I'm a vayrach? They screamed at the guy. He made a mistake. The guy in shul today said Mary Mashiv Arach instead of Mary Datal was saying bracha, and it was wild. It was violent. Almost. It was like. What are you doing? So they screamed at him, Avshu Kulam Baruch Hashem Am Vayrach. So Amarava. So Rava said to him, Pas Yuchma. Pas Yuchma. Rashi says it's a kli cheres, like a dirty vessel, a dark kli cheres. He said, what are you doing? Like, broken vessel. Badi pluk de lamalach. Why are you sticking your head in the machlekes between Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel? That's Bapash what it means, right? Why are you getting involved in this? Then furthermore, so you have to understand, what does that mean? There's two tainas over here. Everyone does like Rabbi Shmuel, so why are you doing like Rabbi Kiva? So there's two questions over here. He's saying 2 points. First of all, the minig is like Rabbi Shmuel. Why are you not doing like the minig Olam? So you see how important the minig is. Even if the halach is like one way, there's a minig. The minute to do something else, even though it looks like everyone's, whatever it is, why are you going against the minute? And Bahadi pluk to lamalach. So Rashi explains, take a look in Rashi. Bahadi pluk to lamalach. The bottom Rashi for the Mishnah. So Rashi says, Taiv nach lecha is divrei Rabbi Shmuel. You should have done like Rabbi Shmuel. Why? She'af Rabbi Kiva maida d'chiyam m'varech tefei adiv. Rabbi Kiva himself agrees that it's better to say I'm a varach. He just says you're fine if you don't say I'm a varach. But also, even Rabbi Kiva agrees that this is the better way of doing it.
I don't care about your thing.
Ela shein tzarech. That's how Rashi understands. So that's the first taina. Why are you getting involved in machlekes Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel? Even Rabbi Kiva holds you yetzi with I'm a varach. And second of all, the minig is like Rabbi Shmuel. So why are you doing like Rabbi Akiva? So l'chayr, they ask, so why was Yitaka doing it? Because he wanted to show the halacha is like Rabbi Kiva. That's why he was doing it. If you're passing like Rabbi Kiva, you're fine if you missed the Amavarach. Okay. That's how they understand what he was doing Rafram. Okay. Says the Mishnah. New Mishnah. Baruch Hashem, Rizaycha. Says the Mishnah, Shleish Sha'ach, this is a very complicated sugya now. Shleish Sha'ach l'ka'achas ein Rishonim and Achronim. 3 guys eat together. Ein Rishonim and Achronim. They can't separate till you do a zimun. There's a chiyuv to do a zimun. V'chein arba, v'chein chamisha. And also if you have 4 guys, you've got 5 guys, you can't split it up. Once you've got 6, you can split up into 2 groups. 6 is 3 and 3. So you have 2 groups of 3. 10 10 guys can't split up, because now you can say Elokeinu. But once you got 20, you could have two groups saying Elokeinu. That's all basic, right? So two groups of people are eating in one house. You got two guys on that table, two guys on this table. If they can see each other, they add up together and you've got a zimun. If they're not eating together, if they can't see each other, each one does a zimun by itself. Nudin, if you've got wine, you can't make a bracha on wine until you add some water in it. Those are the words of Reb Eliezer. Chum say you can make a bracha on it. So just about the wine, what's going on over here with the wine? Why can't you make a bracha on wine until you add water? So the history is that in those days, the wine was incredibly strong, around 20-25% alcohol at least. And they used to add 2/3 water. The gemorah is mefurish. Also, the historians say about the Romans that wine was very strong. Why was it very strong? Either because they used dried grapes, it dried out the grapes first, so it was basically dehydrated before they made the wine. It was incredibly strong. Or they did some type of boiling process that evaporated to cleanse it, whatever it was. They boiled it, and there was no water in it. It was incredibly strong, and it was undrinkable basically. It was disgusting. It was like a thick syrup. You had to add water to make it delicious, to make it drinkable. And that's why you can't make a bar pragofen until you add the water, right? That's how the gemorah. That's what the Mishnah says. Chacham say you can. We're going to see because you can still drink it for different purposes. Before we get there, what's going on over here? The Achronim want to say in this Mishnah, you've got two people in a house, and if they can see each other, so you could connect them for a zimun. Some want to bring a dik from here that same thing is true with tefillah. You need a minyan to daven Shemona Esrei. It's better to have a minyan. If you can see each other, Corona style, from your porch, from your living room, you're davening with another guy. As long as you can see each other, you can bring a dik from here that you mitzvah from minyan. I think it's actually a Rishonim and Achronim, I think says if you can see each other, you eat with a minyan. There's a minyan in the porch in the chanayah downstairs from Mariv. You can see them. You eat. That's called tefillah b'tzibur. So, an important thing I want to say now because I don't want to forget that we're talking about here siruf and zimun. What happens in a case where you go to this wedding and you want to leave early? Do you have to stay for Berachas Hamazon? What's the rule? So there's a Moshe, and he actually quotes other earlier Achronim. As long as if a person decides when he comes in that he's not being mitzaref, he makes a tanai. He says, "I'm not going to bench with these people. I'm benching by myself. I'm not going to be mechayev to bench with the zimun." It's a massive chiddush because it doesn't say that. But as long as he has a gilui das, he thinks it, or even if he says it, then he doesn't have to wait for the zimun. He's allowed to leave early and bench by himself because he didn't want to bench with them. He didn't want to be part of that suda. Massive chiddush. If you're eating together, you got to bench together. That's the whole thing. According to we saw the Taz, if you're leaving before, if you leave early, if you finish early, you don't have to wait for them. It doesn't start. The chiv zimun only kicks in when you finish the meal. Now you're chayiv in zimun. So says the gemorah. The gemorah asks, "What's going on over here? Michael Mashal, what is this Mishnah come to teach me?" Again, the Mishnah said, "Three guys eat, they can't split up." We know that. Right, Michael Mashron, that was the first mission in the Perek. The name of our Perek is Shlosh Achlu. Three guys eat, they have to do zimun. So what's the chiddush over here of this Mishnah? Oh, that was the first Mishnah. What's going on? So what is the chiddush of this Mishnah? This is telling me the din of Rav Abba Shmuel. The what? The gimel shashul kachas. Three guys sit down to eat together. But they didn't yet eat. They're not allowed to separate. So what's going on over here? They sat down to eat, they can't split up now? So what the Mepharshim explains is that they sat down to eat, they washed. They took the first bite of bread, but they didn't have a kazayis. Le'achlu kazayis it means. They didn't eat a kazayis, but they had a bite, they had a nibble. Now, once you had your nibble, that's it. As long as you started eating together, boom, now you're chayv zimun. That's the chiddush over here of this Mishnah. Even if they didn't eat a kazayas, once you eat a kazayas, of course, you're eating together, you got a bench together. Here, you didn't even eat a kazayas. You chayv to do a zimun. That's what our Mishnah has come to teach me. Ikka chosim ha-seifa, should have said it in the Mishnah, good kasha. We're going to see the Zada Malachim in the Mishnah. Lishna achrina, a different mahalach. Amar Rav Abba Abba Shmuel, hachiktani. This is what the Mishnah come to teach me, a separate thing. Gimel shiyosh v'lechel kachas, 3 guys sit down to eat. Afa pish kolechel ve'echad, oichel mikikorai. Even though each one is eating from his own loaf of bread, they're not sharing the meal. It's not a shared meal. It's not a Shabbos table where there's food in the middle and everyone has his own food. Each one sits down with his own sandwich. So you're sitting together, but you're not eating together. We're not sharing the food. The Havamina was, only if you share your meal, do you bench together. We're eating together. But if each one, we're all working together, we sit down, we're each eating a sandwich you brought from home, maybe you don't do a zimun. No, the Chiddush is you do a zimun. It's actually
sitting at the same table.
The Havamina was only if you're eating together the same food. It is a machlokes Rishonim. If this girsa in the gemorah is the original girsa of the gemorah, or it was added on afterwards as the gemorah didn't, the Rishonim didn't know what pshat was, and they had 2 ways of understanding this gemorah. Shelo yachlu, so they stuck it in. It's the lishon of the gemorah, but really it's not lishon of the gemorah. So. Take a look at the Rishonim, the Rosh. But l'chayro pshat is that there was a havamina that only if you're sharing food. Chiddush is even if you're eating, you have your own bread, you have your own loaf, you still have to do a zimun together. Okay, the third lashon, another mahalach over here. Inami, the third pshat. Inami kihodu rafuna. This Mishnah is telling me the din of Rav Huna. Dama Rav Huna says Rav Huna, Gimel Shabo, this is going to get complicated, it's the whole tie, strap in. Gimel Shabo me Gimel Chaboris, Ein Rishai Nechalik. You got 3 guys, come from 3 different groups of people. Again, 3 guys show up from 3 different groups. Ein Rishai Nechalik. Now these 3 guys are sitting together, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi are coming from 3 different groups. But now Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, now they can't lechalek. They're not allowed to separate.
So it's like
they've got to do a zibur together.
Factory lunch.
No, why factory lunch?
No, because they're all coming from
Each one. No, so let's take a look in Rashi. Take a look in Rashi. We'll take a look in Rashi because it's getting very late. But I'll tell you what Rashi says. Rashi, according to Rashi, 3 guys had a meal, each one in his own house. They, for whatever reason, come together now. They meet in the park. They didn't bench yet. They're not eating together, Rashi says. Now they didn't eat the thing. Last line in Rashi. Since they were chayv in the zimun from before, even though now they didn't eat a thing, they didn't eat together a thing. I didn't eat with you. You didn't eat with him. We didn't eat together. You chayv a zimun. Massive chiddush. That's what the chiddush is according to Rashi. We're 3 people together now. We have to do a zimun together, even though we didn't eat together. Since we each came from a chiv zimun, even though we didn't eat together, we're chayv a zimun. That's how Rashi understands it. The Rashi says no, exactly the opposite. The Gemara is saying, "Ein rishayim lechalek." If we didn't eat together, but we each ate beforehand with someone else, ein rishayim lechalek from the original group. We got to go back to the original 3. Nobody can bench now together. We can't split it up from the original 3. You got to go back to where you came from. That's the Machaikas of Hai. Rashi brings of Hai. That's his pshat in the Gemara. So Amr of Chisda said, what are we talking about here? The groups that they came from, we're talking about a case where they came from 3 people. Each one of those 3 had to come from a group of 3. Each one came from a group of 3. Then either they've got to go back to those 3, or since they were chayav from those 3, they've got to do them together. But if, let's say, according to Rashi, they came from 2, he ate with someone else, he ate from 2, then there's no problem. None of them were chayav in a zimun. Only because they were originally chayav in a zimun, now they're chayav again. So Rava, turn the page, says Rava. We don't say this. Ella, this is only true. Ella, the original group didn't go ahead and make a zimun b'duchtayu. So take a look in Rashi. What's going on over here? Rashi says, the chabura shepishu ele mehen, the original groups, v'azmin alai dani. We're talking about a case, k'goyim im hayu arba b'kach chabura. That won't be the case if they originally came from a group of 4, and the 3 guys that were left there made the zimun without them. If there was 3, they can't do a zimun without him, right? You need 3. But if originally the group was 4, says Rashi, and the other 3 did a zimun without him, right? Why did they do a zimun without him? Rashi explains. These 3 guys that left the original groups, they had to go out, right? They had to leave to the shuk for whatever reason. According to the Mepharshim, Hefsed Moment, you'll have to leave the zimun. So they left the zimun, they left the original zimun. If those other 3 guys did the zimun without them, then they don't have to do the zimun now. Because the other 3 guys did the zimun. Aval azmin alai b'duchtayu. Sorry, the azmin, only if they didn't do a zimun. Aval azmin alai b'duchtayu park zimun v'nayu. But if the other 3 guys did a zimun without them, park zimun v'nayu, the zimun's gone. Rashi explains, Aval azmin alayu. Take a look at the first narrow line of Rashi. The Hanishin is Kugansh the staff Ele Man and Zimun. Could have been Lel, Kailam Zamlov, Barach Barchabur, Sve Loyasham Ela Kadeh Barach. So if the original 3 groups, they did a Zimun, but with them, in other words, we said before, Rashi says, that the guy's walking out, you can still make him answer, sweep the window, Rabbi Sanavach, and he answers. So if those guys answered the original Zimun from the original groups, then they've lost the Zimun. Now when those 3 guys get together, they were each already parach the zimun. The original chiv is gone. They already answered. Even though they didn't bench yet, they can't do a zimun anymore. The zimun's gone because they already answered. That's how Rashi understands the gemorah. Big kasha over here that the Rishonim ask is, how were these 3 guys allowed to leave the original zimun? You're not allowed to leave the zimun, right? Why are they leaving? How did they leave? These 3 guys left the 3 groups. How did they leave the 3 groups? What's going on over here? Huh? Oh, so some say it's einus. We're talking about a case where 3 guys had the einus, something happened, siren went off, einus had to leave, right? Others say it's talking about where they left b'sheigeg.
They had a fight with their wife.
It was a mistake. It was chas v'shalom. Others say it was that they had a mistake. They did sheigeg. They each left for whatever reason by mistake. Since they left by mistake, they don't have to go back anymore to the original group. That's how some want to understand. According to the Beis Yosef, we're talking about a case where they're in the same house, right? In other words, what's the kasha? The kasha is how they allowed to leave without benching, right? How they allowed to leave without benching? You got to bench. You can't go ahead and bench in a new place. They had to bench. Now they're going to go somewhere else to bench over there and do a zimun over there. You got to bench where you washed, right? The Beis Yosef says it's talking about the same house. You're allowed, and you can see where you are. They weren't eating together. 3 guys sitting there, guys sitting there, guys sitting there. You're allowed to bench over here because it's under the same roof. You can still bench in the same roof. That way you can do a zimun over here.
Let's take a technically real life example. You live in a building in Old Beit Shemesh. The siren goes off. There's no maklat. You have to go down. There's no mamad. You have to go to the maklat.
Yeah.
So you're sitting there with 20 other people, right?
You do a zimun. Right. So can you do a zimun? So according to the shita, that you're einus. And you don't have to eat together now. According to Rashi, we saw Rashi says, you don't eat, even if you didn't eat a thing downstairs. So, question, you're an owner, so you're allowed to bench downstairs. Yeah, you're not allowed to leave. The gemorah, the implication of the gemorah is they were allowed to, but you're not allowed to leave. You've got to bench where you ate. But since you were owners, now you bench now, do a zimun now together. Exactly, 100%. It's a big chiddush. So, others say, you know what's going on over here? We're talking about a case where they did eat. In the new place, Rashi says they didn't, even though they didn't eat. Why did I say they didn't eat? You ate there, and now they ate here. Since they ate here together, now the Chayiv benching here, so the Chayiv is in here. That's how others want to say. Or you could say a different shot that these three guys were fine. The other two guys in the Chabura left, and now they're stuck without a Zimun. The other two guys left. They had the idols. These two guys are left. So they're allowed to do a Zimun.
How far do you have to go to have a Zimun? Let's say they left. Fine, so there's no Zimun.
Right, so the other two guys left. So they don't have a Chiv Zimun now. I don't have a Chiv Zimun. The other guys left. But guess what? Now, with me and the other two guys are in the same story. Now we have a Chiv Zimun. Now I can do Zimun with these other two guys.
Yep.
Their partners also left. In other words, 6 guys bucket.
The rejects can make their own semen minion.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
But it turns out the whole kasha doesn't start. The fear of high going, I'm just thinking now, the fear of high going that we mentioned before, the whole thing doesn't start. Because according to the high going, the Chiddush is Ein Rishayim L'Chag, they have to go back to the original thing. Maybe that's why he says this. They can't just leave the original Chabura. When he said, according to Rav Hai, Ein Rishayim L'Chag doesn't mean they can't leave the new 3. Ein Rishayim L'Chag, the original groups. They got to go back to the original groups. That's how Rav Hai understood it. Okay. Just, I guess I'll say very quickly that the Bach brings that according to Rabbeinu Yaina, right? Ein Rishayim L'Chalek is only chal if you wash together. Only if you wash together. Ein Rishayim L'Chalek. The end of you don't look at the end of sorry. Yeah, you only look at the beginning of the meal. Don't look at the end of the meal. Did they wash together? You had the first kazayas, then you chayav. So these 3 guys, they didn't start the meal together. Why are they Ein Rishayim L'Chalek? What's going on over here? Like they didn't at the end of the meal. They didn't at the beginning of the meal. They didn't any of the meal. Like what? Why can't they? Why do they have to do Zimun together? So it's important to so it explains the Bach. The chiddush of the gemorah, the whole chiddush of this gemorah is according to Rabbeinu Yaina, that since they had the Chiv Zimun from before, from the original groups, that doesn't leave them. They got a Chiv Zimun. That's why now they've got to do a Zimun now with the new group. In other words, the whole Chiddush is that they have a Chiv Zimun, and that never leaves them. They've got to now do a Zimun, even though these 3 guys don't have a Chiv Zimun together. But since each one came with their own Chiv Zimun from before, now they got to do a Zimun together. That's a Chiddush of gemorah.
Oh, wow.
Even though they didn't eat together, but they've all got a Chiv Zimun. And where did that go? They've got to take care of that Chiv. All right, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.